Kindred is a jungling monster. The level 3 power spike and infinite scaling alongside high mobility and team utility dominates any opposition. Let's start with some runes. A standard attack damage page will do just fine. A bit of tweaking can include armor penetration marks, attack speed marks, or quints, and or cooldown reduction glyphs. We take AD because most of Kindred's damage is through auto attacking. Attack speed and cooldown reduction is nice for faster clears in the jungle, and the armored penetration is for better damage primarily versus champions. Masteries. Currently the most popular setup is the Bounty Hunter because we gank and kill a lot, and Strength of the Ages for free HP. This is a fantastic page for 99% of ganking heavy junglers. However, if you're a bit more advanced or bloodthirsty, the Max of Thunderlord's Decree is also an option. The extra damage brought is nice for early kills, but can be risky, especially if you start to fall behind. Level up path. Pretty much all jungler kindreds take W first, Q second, and E third. W is first because it does a bit more damage than the Q for that first camp. We take Q second because it's our mobility skill and brings the extra damage and general off proc in the W. E is third solely because it's for ganking crowd control. Max Q first for the better damage scaling, then W and E second or third. I found it doesn't really matter which one's max next. E is nice for chasing, but W is better for team fights or dueling. Of course, take R whenever possible. The cooldown reduction through leveling is ginormous. Early and core items. Standard junglers start with machete, potions, and a warding totem. Notably not refillable since sustain is not necessary come mid game, and it just takes up a spot. Upgrading to the smite of choice. Kindred likes to duel a lot, so I take skirmishers, but it's totally fine to take trackers for additional vision. Make sure to pick up boot to speed around the same time and a pink ward for vision control. Eventually take warriors enchant and boot to swiftness with alacrity. The warriors is for the early game damage spike and swifties with alacrity for map travel speed and pressure. But all the pros are doing devour, obviously you're wrong. Warriors is generally better in solo queue because we want to snowball the early game, as opposed to in pro play where it's considerably more difficult or even impossible. Thus, they go for Devour so they can scale into the late game. Additionally, Kindred by nature is an early game champion. It would be silly not to itemize and take advantage of it. Offensive options. The Rapid Fire Cannon. Almost always the first item I go for after my core. It's a huge damage spike which helps transition to the mid to late game. Yumu's Ghostblade, also a great option after the core or RFC. The chasing and dueling power is immensely helpful. Blade of the Rune King. After its nerfs, Blade of the Rune King isn't such a great general item anymore. I typically only take this for extended fights where I need the sustain or up against a lot of tanks. Generally, I don't build more offense in these items, however, feel free to experiment with Bloodthirster for sustain, and Infinity Edge for massive damage, and Static Shiv for wave clear. Defensive options. Maul of Malmortius, a fantastic overall item with the bonus anti-ability power burst. Great item to build after core, even if it's just the Hex Drinker. Steric's Gauge, also a great overall item with the bonus anti-attack damage burst. Randuin's Omen, effective against heavy attack damage teams. Banshee's Veil, effective against heavy ability power teams. The first clear can be a touch difficult, just make sure to kite around and spam Q and W as much as possible. When level 3 is hit, look aggressively for that first mark and or gank. Getting a level 3 to 4 kill is fairly easy against most matchups. Mid game, similar to the early game, play a touch more passively and focus on taking turrets. The mid game is when most champs in the game get their power spikes, whereas you're just coming off of yours. Make sure to keep getting those marks as much as possible. That's how you scale into the late game. Late game, by far the worst aspect of Kindred. Notably, that's why pros go for Devourer as opposed to Warrior. Keep getting marks to scale and generally stick with your team protecting carries and laying down constant damage. Don't try to split push. Kindred's tower damage and map presence is minimal. Beware of Lee Sin or Shaco. Both can outduel you and meet you at every mark as fast as you can get there. Lee Sin is especially bad since they can kick people out of your ultimate. Scaling with the passive is necessary to scale into the late game. Don't ignore it. On a similar note, it can be a great way to bait the enemy and to try to take the mark away only to die from an ambush. However, the same can happen to you. Even though Kindred is an ADC, try not to fight when the abilities are on cooldown. Most of our power comes from hitting tons of Qs off the back of W and E and weaving auto attacks every so often. Using the ultimate effectively is incredibly difficult. There's no golden answer. Over time, the situations when you should and shouldn't will become apparent. Common scenarios are saving a carry against an assassination, a safe zone outside a tower dive, or generally stalling for time. I found it's better to let most teammates die than to even save an enemy. Sorry, teammates. If you want to climb the rank ladder, then there are few other options as good as Kindred. Apply immense pressure early and thwart assassinations.